Welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy. And let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better.
Big cats are always fun to do. And the way we're going to start this, like normal, we're going to start out simple shapes. Composition. A good composition is where your subject comes close to touching 3 of the 4 sides, or touches. And so here with our tiger, that little tail, we can keep that tail off there, leave it, have a little bit of space on the left. But on the right, we're going to slide him all the way up to this other side. So I'm just going to make a little mark and say that's where his body goes. Just leave like an inch or so maybe on that side. So you just slide him right up to that side. Then his head, his body, it's all going to be fairly large. So you can come over and you say, well, okay, maybe that's his head. That's how big I want his head. And if this is his body, then his paw is going to be almost down to the bottom. And you just mark it out. That way, it kind of gives you a size and an area that you're going to cover. So then you just kind of think simple shapes. Okay, his body's going to take up this much space. This leg kind of comes down. His paw is about right in there. And this may not be in the right place. In fact, it probably isn't. But it's a starting point. This is how I kind of go in and just kind of start with placement, how to put what you're putting in there. So I'm just putting in some very, very basic things. I'm not sure I like the tail coming off his head right there. It's kind of coming out of his mouth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that tail and I'm going to slide it down just a little bit so it comes off his chin a little bit more. It doesn't look like it's coming out of his mouth. That is one thing that photographers, you can go in and Photoshop and things like that now, but when you're taking a photo of something like a tiger, you're at the mercy of what you see. And so with photography, it's hard to change. But here with art, we can change those things. We can come in and alter them a little bit. So now what I'm doing is I'm just starting to adjust. I can look at my object and say, okay, how big is the head as compared to the rest of the body? You know, and I can start adjusting. Adjust. The head is just this simple rounded shape. You've got this kind of rounded triangular shape for his jowls or his nose. His jaw kind of half moon comes off of that. Now, I don't know if you know this much about animals or people, but a lot of animals, if you look at the shape of the head, which is usually oval or round, and you come right down to the center, that's about where the eyes are. So as I'm looking at that circular shape that I've got there, and if it looks about right, I can come up and say, well, about right in there somewhere, right in the middle. And you can use your fingers like calipers, but about right in the middle is where the eye goes. So there's one eye over here, and there's another eye over here somewhere. And if that's not in the right place, you can alter it, you can change it, you can move it. Remember, we're drawing with the side of our pencil. So as you can kind of pick up your pencil and kind of show it to the camera or to people. Then you just flip your hand over, and that's how you're drawing. The side of your pencil. Your elbow and your shoulder. Not so much wrist. We leave that for the detail. So, and then if you go straight up from where your eye is, if you like that placement and go straight up from there, that's about where that ear goes. And it's just this kind of little rounded triangle shape. There's another one over on the other side, kind of a rounded. It's probably not that big. Notice I haven't erased anything yet. It's a bad habit to draw a line and go, oh, I don't like that line, and erase it. because then what you've done is you've taken out your point of reference. And so keep that point of reference in there and wait to erase. So as you kind of come along, all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, okay, I can see where that goes. Now I can wait to erase. Besides that, you need that graphite. We've got to put a ton of graphite in here anyway. So that back leg, if this is his hind, and I'm just thinking, okay, if this is his back, maybe I want his tail to come off of this and kind of curl up here. And I'm going to simplify that. I'm going to keep it kind of simple. No, I didn't like it coming out of his mouth there. That was kind of a little weird. So I think that looks better. And now what we want to do is we want to use the side of our pencil to get some of the gray in. So ignore the stripes, ignore the really dark areas, and just try to look at those light gray areas. With the side of your pencil, just shade in anything that is light gray. And if it's white and you think, oh, I put in gray where I shouldn't have put in gray, use your kneaded eraser to pull a little bit of that out. So I'm just putting in the darkest areas of the grays, not the stripes. A lot of stripes. We'll get those later. Even the light area that's around his eye, you may want to just kind of leave that out a little bit. And if you accidentally put in gray where you shouldn't have, that's okay. Your kneaded eraser can pull that out. I've already noticed that other ear is in the wrong spot, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. So with the side of our pencil like this, I don't know if you've ever drawn something and it gets kind of streaky and you're like, I hate those streaks. This is one way to make it smooth. Is first of all, you put in this nice light layer of graphite. And that'll smooth it all out. Nothing in here is really light. So I'm going to put a little bit of graphite all over that. I'm just using the side of my pencil. And I'm not worried about detail. That will come later. Now you start analyzing it. What do I need to change? What is not quite right? Look at the negative spaces, like the space in between his leg right there. You can just look at that negative space and get rid of it. Or you can say, you know what? It needed to be a little bit different. Look at the side of his arm, his front leg, whatever you call it, as it kind of comes up. The body, the shape of everything. Don't draw a line around things, just use the edge. Then you can take your kneaded eraser, you come in and just pull out those edges. So I'm just using my kneaded eraser now to clean up any edges, clean up anything that needs to be. And if you wanted to, if you think to yourself, oh, I'd like that to be smoother and I'd really like to finalize some of those edges that I've got, you can use your kneaded eraser, come in and clean up some of that stuff, and then also you can take your cotton swab and you start blending. You can start kind of moving that around. And again, once you start getting some graphite on that cotton swab, then you can start drawing with that cotton swab. For example, as I come down, that nose kind of comes down in here, I can use my cotton swab to just kind of pick up some of those little darker areas. And if they're not right, I can change them. I can get rid of them. And I'm just using my cotton swab and blending some of this stuff, pulling some of this stuff out, softening some of it. Now, we're doing a tiger, and I don't know if you've ever felt a tiger pelt, but they're extremely soft. And so I want this tiger to feel soft. I don't want a hard edge anywhere. And so there's no really hard line. When you get to the outside surface and you think, oh, okay, there's fur right there, just take your cotton swab and bring out some of that fur. And it'll make that edge just soft and fluffy. He'll be so soft and fluffy, you'll want to give him a hug. But you may want to be careful because they'll lick your face off. Literally. Even if they like you. So notice how he's starting to like become a little ghost image. And again, you can take your kneaded eraser and go, well, you know what, that's too big or too much. You can pull things out. And you can go in circles, you can go back and forth. It doesn't really matter. You're just giving that a little blending. Like I say, the more graphite you get on there, the more able you are to draw with that. So I can draw with that cotton swab. Soften your edges. Very little erasing. Don't feel like you have to erase everything. Because eventually you're going to need all that graphite anyway. We're going to just keep adding and adding until this is just the way we want it to be. And use your kneaded eraser to clean up things. No details in here. I know it almost looks like I'm trying to do some details. I'm really just trying to get some of the medium grays in there. I'm really not trying to do much detail. When you're happy with what you see, or satisfied with what you see, then you're thinking, okay, I'm ready for some really dark areas. I'm ready to grind this into the surface. I'm ready for this to become permanent. Because right now, nothing here is real permanent. So, when you're ready to really grind it into the surface, you take that 6B pencil. It'll say 6B on the end. And now we're ready for some real detail, some high contrast, some darks. So now what I'm going to do is, the eyes are so important. I mean, when you look at a tiger, you just automatically go to the eyes. They are just so mesmerizing. So I'm going to zoom into his head a little bit, and we're gonna make sure that that head is done well. The rest of him, you could fudge a little bit on that. His little toes can be different. His leg can be in a different position, but the eyes need to be where the eyes go. And so we're just gonna try to keep this as close as we can to what we got. So I'm gonna zoom into his head here, and I'm gonna take my 6B pencil. I start with the eye, but you can start anywhere you want to. I get asked this a lot. Where do you start? I don't know. You can start with the ear if you want. Just to be rebellious, I'm going to start with the ear. I'm just going to start with that little dark area that's there. And then anything that is really dark, just skip over anything you don't see. So if you think to yourself, oh, I don't see that edge, or I don't see that, just skip over it. Just do the little dark shapes that you do see. And again, doesn't matter where you start. You can start wherever you want to start. And I'm just going to do little zigzags for any dark areas. So even his stripes, if they're a little dark, I'm just going to do these little zigzaggy lines like this. Or there's a feathered line. The feathered line is where you take a line, you kind of drop your pencil in, and you give it a little flip. And you get this feathered edge where there's light edge. And you can keep doing that feathered line. And if you variate it, some flip up, some flip down, then all of a sudden it's going to look like hair or fur. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do these little feathered lines. And you can even go back and forth, almost like, I don't know, I kind of come down, drop it in, and then I flip it up, and then I come down, drop it in, flip it up. So it's just kind of a back and forth, flip, 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 flip. You can do hair that way too. But try to variate it. Have some going some way, some going the other, some flipping up, some flipping down. Okay? So those feathered lines, I'm going to do that all over too. I'm going to do the eye. This eye is just wanting to be done. So I'm going to come in. There's a little dark triangle right there as it kind of curves over the eye. Another little dark edge going around the eye. And you don't have to go all the way around. You can stop wherever you feel like you need to. Another little dark edge underneath it. Usually there's a little double line because, you know, animals have eyelids too. So there's that dark edge. He's also got a little shine in his eye, and that little shine is going to make it look a little more lifelike. His pupil almost touches, not quite, but almost touches the top eyelid. So if I come in and do this little oval or a little circle, and as I come in, I'm just going to leave out a little edge, a little line right there at the top, a little shine. And as I blend that, that will become a little more lifelike. Anything else that's around it, if you wanted to do some of those little stripes that kind of come over the top, look at the shape of them and just try to mimic that little shape. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. Nobody's going to look at those stripes and say, well, that tiger didn't have those stripes like that. Now, some of that gray we've already got. It's probably not enough, but there's a little bit of light that's in there. Kind of neglected that light. I should have taken it out to begin with. But that's okay. When I first started teaching, I started teaching the way my old art teacher taught. Here, just draw this any way you can. And then I found that everybody was really slow. It's like, who taught you how to draw? Probably like me. You taught yourself. Nobody taught you something. So that's why I do these drawing days. We only have 3 or 4 of them. And so I try to make the best out of these drawing days I can. When else do you get to draw with a professional artist? So now I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to spread from there over and around and out and wherever I feel like I need to. And all the shapes that I see, I'm just picking up the shapes and trying to mimic those shapes with my pencil. Just pick up any black shapes. And if it looks kind of gray, you think, well, I could put a little of that in it. Go ahead. But just remember to kind of shake a little bit so that it's not a hard edge. Notice I didn't put the edge there. That will happen. In fact, your eye kind of makes that connection that there's an edge there. We'll really get into that when we do ink, when we draw with ink. The further you get away from the face, especially the eye, the more you can kind of be sketchy or fudge a little. Sometimes I'll flip back up to this mode and draw with the side of my pencil because it's a little faster that way. So I can do especially tiger stripes. See how fast those stripes go when you're using the side of your pencil? It's not important that they're exact. Just try to get them as close as you can. Here's his other eye. Big cat's eyes are very round. But you got to cut off the top just a little bit. So you see more of the round part on the bottom. And there's this eye has quite a shine in it. So just do a little Pac-Man shape, a little C shape, and leave out that little shine. Right now he looks a little excited, but as soon as we blend it, it's not going to be so bad. Now remember, a lot of this stuff we're going to be blending. So you can pull that dark right down into it. Don't worry about whiskers too. Those are like one of the last things we do. I'll show you how to do those. Not a big deal if those stripes don't match. Just do your best. And notice I haven't done the bottom of the chin yet. That will come with the tail and everything else. But anytime you have fur, you want to use your cotton swab. The ear was almost in the right spot. I kind of almost had it right. I'm just throwing a few little dark areas kind of towards the bottom inside of the ear. I'll be able to blend that. It'll look better when I'm done. Remember, the farther you get away from the head of the animal, whatever it is, even people, the more you can fudge a little bit. Let's zoom out on him. And just keep going with those stripes. Now, once you get to that point and you're ready to do a little bit of blending, you're going to pick up on all that dark that's in there. So you can pull some of that dark out. You can use that in between to darken in some of these areas. And again, you pick and choose. How much do you want? You want to darken in some more of that. You can use that to kind of create a fuzzy, kind of fur-like texture. You don't have to go over everything, but just what you feel like you need to. See how that starts to look more lifelike? Oh, I got to show you this in the eye. This is how you do an eye. And you do this with any eye. It doesn't matter if it's animal or people or, whatever. You just take your cotton swab and you kind of go around the top part of the eye and you just bring some of that down to the... But you don't want it all to be the same. Try to avoid that little light if you can. Because the top part of the eye is going to be a little darker than the bottom part. Because you get reflected light that bounces up into that part of the eye. And then you got that kind of orangey color that's around that. And voila, now you got a nice eye. And you just go back into it and keep that nice light part of the eye. Now you go back into it with your kneaded eraser. Pinch it down to a little point. Touch that little bit of light that's there. Touch that little light. Just touch it. It'll set that off and make it a little brighter. And you also, maybe on the very bottom of that circle part of his eye, if you go in with your kneaded eraser, just pull out a little bit of light right there. Just gives it a glow, kind of a glassy kind of a glow. If you pull out too much, you can always go back into it with your cotton swab. I'm going to do the same thing with the other eye. Blend a little bit at the top, bring a little bit of that down in there. Softens it up. Look how that eye becomes so lifelike. When you're doing the ears, again, they're soft. There's a little hair that kind of comes out. You can just bring a little bit of that out, do a little flip with it, and you got it. Take your kneaded eraser, go back into it, pull out some little light areas. Side of his head, keep that soft. Taking my cotton swab and just doing a couple little hair like I taught you there. Look how soft that becomes there at the side. And if you put too much, if you blend it too much, you can always go back in with your kneaded eraser. Pull a little bit out. When you're ready to do like his little jowls and his chin, it's the same thing. Just use your cotton swab to get around the edges of his chin, and then take your kneaded eraser and go around and get some of those little light areas, just enough. That's his chin. Here's his other ear. Is that the easiest tiger you've ever drawn? Is that the only tiger you've ever drawn? And it's looking okay. You know, for your first try, not bad. Now, because we got the head done, you can go through the rest of the body. And just like we did with the side of our pencil, you just kind of pick out where some of the stripes go. And you just scribble them in. Okay, don't be too smooth about them. Just go ahead and scribble them in. If you go in the direction that the body flows or that the hair is, it's going to look a little bit more like fur. It's the stripes that are defining the rest of the body. So use those to define the rest of his body. I haven't worried about toes or anything yet. All that will come. I'm just scribbling in these little lines, not worried about too much of it, because that's all just kind of on the back. Nobody really cares, do they? Kind of hard to see what's going on in the paws. So don't worry too much about the paws. You can throw in this little dark shape that's where the paws kind of come in. Then you've got a little dark shape that comes up each paw. Little triangles. Just put those little triangles in. And then it'll come through, promise you. Now the magic cotton swab, and you got it. So just wherever it's dark, go ahead and scribble in some of that darkness. You can use some of your cotton swab to get some fur. His back leg is pretty dark, so I'm just going to blend all the way through. You can always add more to it as well if you need to. Didn't think too much about that back paw. So this is what I mean by you can be really sketchy. I'm just kind of throwing in these lights and darks back in there. Or these darks. Lights are already kind of done for you. Like I say, you can take this as far as you want it to go. If you want to do it very photographic, you can do that. And the last thing you want to do, well, one of the last things you do, take your kneaded eraser, clean up anything. If you've got smudgies on it, clean up the smudges. Pull out any light that you need to pull out. But notice how soft he looks. If we had drawn a line around him, he wouldn't look soft. And if you want to put in some little whiskers, you can do that. Just take your eraser, pinch it down to a knife blade, and just pull out a few little, I mean, you can hardly see them, but you know they're there. A good place to sign it is somewhere around his tail. Maybe not right on the end, but maybe over there somewhere. Hopefully you had a fun experience today and learned something maybe, and even tried something that you've never done before. And hopefully somewhere along the way it's made your life a little bit better, because art makes life better.